I didn't do anything wrong. At least, I didn't think I did. That's what made it worse. Because when your credit score drops overnight, your first reaction isn't panic, it's confusion. I was drinking coffee at my kitchen table when the notification appeared on my phone. Credit score update available. Routine, normal, harmless. I almost ignored it. I wish I had. When I opened the app, I expected the usual small fluctuation. Maybe up a few points, maybe down 2 or 3. Nothing dramatic, nothing life-changing. But the number I saw wasn't a fluctuation. It was a fall, a sharp one. Dozens of points. Gone. Overnight. My stomach tightened. Not because I understood what happened, but because I didn't. Credit scores don't move like that without a reason. They don't react emotionally, they react structurally to missed payments, to new debt, to high balances, to risk. And I hadn't done any of those things. No new cards, no missed bills, no large purchases, nothing reckless, nothing irresponsible. So why did the system suddenly consider me risky? I refreshed the screen. Same number. I logged out and back in. Still there. Lower. Permanent. Credit doesn't ask how you feel about it. It simply reflects data. And the data now said I was less trustworthy. I opened the detailed report, line by line, account by account, looking for something unfamiliar, something new, something that explained the drop. At first, everything looked normal. Car loan, current. Credit card, paid. Utilities, on time. Then I saw it. An account I recognized, but didn't fully expect. Because in my mind, it was handled, closed, finished, inactive. But it wasn't. The balance had increased significantly. Not slightly, not gradually, significantly. High utilization, near the limit. That's what had happened. Utilization ratio impacts credit heavily, and that account, still connected to my name, had surged. I hadn't touched it. I hadn't logged into it. I hadn't even thought about it in months, because it wasn't mine anymore. At least, that's what I believed. The memory came back slowly. The conversation, the explanation. It's temporary. That word again, temporary. Temporary feels safe. Temporary feels controlled. Temporary feels reversible. But credit doesn't recognize temporary. Credit recognizes responsibility, and responsibility is tied to names, not conversations, not promises, names. I opened the account portal separately, heart steady, hand steady, trying to keep emotion out of something structural. The balance wasn't just high, it was almost maxed out. Interest had compounded, payments had been minimal, and my name was still listed. Not historical, not removed, current, active, responsible. I leaned back in my chair and exhaled slowly. Not angry, not yet, just aware. Because awareness is the moment illusion breaks. I had assumed it was handled, assumed it was under control, assumed my name had been removed. But assumption doesn't change documentation. Documentation doesn't care what you believe. It reflects what exists. And what existed was this. My credit score hadn't dropped randomly. It had responded to risk, to exposure, to a responsibility I thought was gone, but wasn't. That was the first moment I understood something important. Credit doesn't collapse because of emotion. It collapses because of structure. And structure doesn't dissolve without action. I didn't wait. Confusion turns into damage if you ignore it. And damage, especially financial damage, doesn't reverse itself. I called the bank that afternoon. Not emotionally, not accusatory, just precise. because precision matters when responsibility is involved. After verifying my identity, I asked a simple question. Can you explain why the balance on this account increased so significantly? The representative didn't hesitate. She read the numbers like they were weather data, neutral, objective, unattached. Over the last 4 months, she said, only minimum payments were made. The balance increased due to continued spending and accrued interest. Continued spending. The words didn't feel dramatic. They felt factual, which somehow made them heavier. I haven't used that account, I said carefully. A pause. Then the part I already knew but hadn't fully accepted. As a joint account holder, you share equal responsibility and access. Equal responsibility, equal access, equal risk. That phrase matters in the United States because legally, equal doesn't mean fair. It means shared. Shared means both. Not primary, not secondary, both. I thought my name had been removed, I said. Another pause. I'm sorry, she replied. There's no record of removal. No record. Because removal requires paperwork. It requires confirmation. It requires finalization. Not discussion, not agreement between people. Documentation. And documentation hadn't happened. I thanked her and ended the call. Not because I felt better, because I understood something critical. My credit score hadn't dropped because of bad luck. It had dropped because of exposure. Exposure to debt I wasn't monitoring. Exposure to spending I wasn't controlling. Exposure tied to my name. Names are powerful in finance. They carry weight. They carry liability. They carry consequence. And my name was still carrying something I thought it had put down. I logged back into the credit report. The drop made more sense now. High utilization impacts credit heavily. When a card approaches its limit, the system sees risk, and risk lowers trust. Credit is trust quantified, and right now, the system trusted me less. Not because I missed a payment, because I was connected to rising debt, even if I didn't create it. Connection is enough. I sat quietly at my kitchen table, staring at the screen. Not angry at him, not yet. More frustrated with myself, because I hadn't verified. I had trusted. Trusted that it was temporary. Trusted that it was handled. Trusted that conversations equaled completion. But finance doesn't operate on trust. It operates on record. And the record still showed my name. I checked the account history further. Spending had increased gradually. Nothing dramatic. No single reckless purchase. Just accumulation. Small amounts, added up over time. That's how financial damage usually happens in America. Not through one catastrophic mistake, through quiet neglect, through lack of oversight, through assuming someone else is handling it. I called him that evening. Calm, controlled, measured. Did you know the balance is almost maxed out? I asked. Silence. Then, I've been trying to manage it. Trying, not resolving. Trying doesn't lower utilization. Trying doesn't protect credit. Trying doesn't remove liability. I thought my name was off, I said. I thought so too, he replied. Thought. Again. Thought replaces verification when people want things to feel settled. But thought doesn't protect your credit score. Action does. Documentation does. Confirmation does. The system doesn't respond to what you thought happened. It responds to what legally exists. And legally, I was still there. Attached, responsible, exposed. That was the moment confusion shifted into clarity. My credit score hadn't betrayed me, it had warned me. Warned me that something structural was still tied to my identity. And structure doesn't disappear until it's dismantled. Properly, legally, completely. The drop didn't feel real until it cost me something. That's how financial damage works. It stays abstract until it becomes personal. 2 weeks after I saw the new score, I applied to refinance my car. Nothing dramatic, just a better rate, a smarter move, the kind of move responsible people make. I had stable income, clean payment history, no missed bills. I expected approval. Instead, I got hesitation. "Your credit profile shows elevated utilization," the loan officer said gently. Elevated utilization. That phrase again. Neutral, polite, but heavy. He explained the rate would be higher than expected. Not denial, just penalty. That's how credit works in America. It doesn't always shut doors, it makes them more expensive. The difference between a good score and a damaged one isn't just numbers, it's cost. Long-term cost. I ended the call calmly, but inside something shifted, because now the damage wasn't theoretical, it had a price tag, and that price was mine. Not his, mine. I opened the credit app again. The number hadn't moved, still lower, still reflecting risk, still connected to that account. I realized something uncomfortable. As long as the balance remained high, my financial future would remain restricted. Not blocked, restricted. Higher interest, lower limits, more scrutiny. Credit doesn't punish loudly, it restricts quietly, and restriction accumulates over time. I called him again. Not angry, not emotional, focused. "This is affecting me now," I said. "I know," he replied, "but knowing and fixing are not the same thing. I'm trying to pay it down," he said. Trying. Again. Trying is slow. Credit reacts quickly. Interest compounds daily. Scores update monthly. Damage moves faster than effort. I asked the question I had avoided. "Can you refinance it in your name only?" Silence. Longer this time. "I don't qualify right now," he said. And that was the turning point. Because if he didn't qualify alone, that meant the bank still needed me, needed my income, my history, my score, to support the risk, which meant I wasn't just attached, I was essential. And essential means trapped, not emotionally, structurally. The system wasn't waiting for promises, it was waiting for resolution. And resolution wasn't happening fast enough. I looked at the numbers again, the balance, the utilization ratio, the minimum payments barely covering interest. This wasn't temporary, this was ongoing exposure, exposure tied to my name. I sat in silence that night, not thinking about fairness, not thinking about blame, thinking about control. Because control had quietly shifted away from me when I stopped monitoring, when I stopped verifying, when I assumed removal had happened. Control doesn't disappear loudly, it fades through inattention, and I had been inattentive, not irresponsible, trusting. And trusting without verification is risky in finance. The next morning, I did something different. I ran the numbers myself. What would it cost me to aggressively reduce the balance? What would it take to protect my credit now instead of hoping it recovered later? The math wasn't comfortable. It would require sacrifice, rearranging my budget, delaying other goals, adjusting plans. But sacrifice felt better than uncertainty, because uncertainty compounds faster than debt. I realized something critical. As long as I waited for him to fix it, I was exposed, and exposure was what dropped my score in the first place. Responsibility doesn't disappear because you didn't create the debt. Responsibility exists because you signed, and my signature was still there, attached, active, real. That was the moment I stopped hoping for resolution and started planning for it, myself. The hardest part wasn't the drop. It wasn't the lower number. It wasn't even the higher interest rate. The hardest part was accepting that waiting had become a liability. Waiting for him to fix it, waiting for the balance to go down, waiting for things to stabilize on their own. But credit doesn't stabilize through hope. It stabilizes through reduction, through action, through ownership. I opened my budget that night and looked at it differently, not as a list of expenses, as a plan for recovery. Because recovery requires direction, and direction requires decision. I calculated how much I could afford to pay beyond the minimum. It wasn't comfortable. It meant cutting back. It meant saying no to things I had planned. It meant redirecting money towards something I didn't feel was entirely mine. But it was attached to my name, and that made it mine. Legally, structurally, financially. The next payment I made wasn't small. It wasn't reckless either. It was intentional. Enough to reduce utilization noticeably. Enough to send a signal to the system. Because credit responds to signals. High balance signals risk. Lower balance signals stability. And stability was what I needed to rebuild. Month after month, I paid more than required. Not dramatically, but consistently. Consistency matters more than intensity in finance. Every payment reduced the balance. Every reduction lowered the utilization ratio. Every lower ratio improved my score slightly. Not overnight, but steadily. Recovery isn't dramatic, it's incremental. And incremental progress is what rebuilds trust with the system. He continued making payments too, but I no longer relied on that. I monitored the account weekly, not because I was anxious, because I was informed. There's a difference. Anxiety reacts. Information protects. The score began to climb slowly. 5 points, 7, 10. Not enough to celebrate, but enough to confirm movement. I learned something during that period that no one teaches clearly. Credit doesn't punish emotion. It punishes exposure. And exposure exists wherever your name is attached, even if you're not spending, even if you're not benefiting, even if you believe it's temporary. Temporary isn't a financial category. Active is. Closed is. Paid is. Those are categories. Temporary is just a conversation. 6 months later, the balance had dropped significantly. The utilization ratio was healthy. My score had mostly recovered, not because the system felt sympathy, because the structure changed. Structure is what drives outcomes, and structure only changes through action. The final shift came when he finally qualified to refinance in his name alone. This time, I didn't trust conversation. I waited for documentation. I waited for confirmation. I waited for proof of removal. When the email arrived confirming my name was officially released, I read it 3 times. Not emotionally, carefully, because clarity protects, and protection requires verification. I logged into the account one last time. My name was gone. Not hidden, not secondary, removed, inactive, disconnected. That word mattered most. Disconnected. Because disconnection ends exposure, and exposure is what damages credit. The score didn't skyrocket the next day. That's not how recovery works, but it stabilized, and stability is what I had lost. I closed my laptop slowly and sat there in the quiet. Not relieved, not triumphant, just aware. Aware that in the United States, your financial identity is one of your most valuable assets, and that identity is fragile when shared. Sharing responsibility without oversight is risk. Risk lowers trust, and trust is what credit measures. My score dropped overnight, but the lesson didn't. The lesson stayed, permanent. Verify, monitor, protect your name. Because in finance, your name is your leverage, and once attached, it doesn't detach without action. Has your credit score ever dropped unexpectedly? Did you find out why? Leave a comment. Your story might help someone protect their financial future. And don't forget, like, share, and subscribe.